All right, so Unit 2, Choice 1, Part C was the part that was asked about. That says solve the system algebraically and verify the solution, or to verify the solution above. So solving systems algebraically, that was either through elimination or substitution. Those are the only ones that are considered algebraically. The other one would be graphing, which you would have already done in parts A and B. Personally, I like elimination better, but the way that it's set up is not super helpful for elimination. So you have a few options. You can rearrange it so that it is more helpful. The 3x plus 2y equals 21. Another thing I would accept though, once you get your answer from part B by graphing, I would accept you just plugging it in to both equations and showing that it makes both true, because that is like the solution to the system, and that is still algebraically. So yeah, it's set up to where substitution is probably the more desired method, but honestly, we were doing it first hour and it was kind of like a lot of steps and the numbers weren't nice numbers at the end. So I'm going to try elimination in this hour. For elimination to work, they'd have to be in the same form. So I'd probably make this one look more like that one by moving the 3x. How would I move it to the other side? You would subtract it. To make it cancel out, I'd have to make it 0. Subtracting it would do that. Whatever you do on one side, do it to the other side, on the equal side. This makes it negative 3x plus y equals negative 3, which is now something that I can line up with this one and do elimination. All right, so I rearranged it, and then I just moved it to where like now all I have to do is add or subtract them to eliminate. Sometimes you can do that right away. Sometimes you need to multiply one of them by something first. Do I have a common coefficient in front of one of the variables? I'm gonna take it out of here. So do I have a common coefficient? Remember what a common coefficient is? Do you know what a coefficient is? Well, then make sure you definitely know how to do both parts of Unit 2 then, because you probably really need the extra credit on both sides of it. Coefficient, I'm not going to tell you. Google is free. You can't use Google during your actual test. Just simply throw away when you So what is a coefficient? It is not a letter, no. A letter would be a variable. A coefficient is so nobody Googled what is a coefficient. Tell me the definition of all. Because when you guys don't answer me, I have to change the question. So you can't get out of it by like now answering the original question. Yes? So in really simple terms, a coefficient is what? the number that's multiplied by a variable. So the number in front of a variable. Okay, now my original question was, do I have a common coefficient? Do I have a common number in front of the same variable? Which one, the x or the y? So because that is true, I don't need to multiply one of these by anything yet. If you did, maybe multiply the bottom one by 2 so you have a common coefficient there. But I don't need to. I already have one here. So would adding or subtracting these eliminate the x? Wait, adding or subtracting? Which one would eliminate the x? Adding, because they have opposite sign. Remember, it was same sign, subtract. Well, these do not have the same sign, so we're gonna add them. Because 3x plus negative 3x is 0, that does eliminate the x. Because I have to add here, I need to add everywhere else. What's 2y plus y? What's 21 plus negative 3? A positive 18. Opposite of multiplying by 3 is whatever you go on one side. And y ends up equaling 6. It's not the same answer I got first hour, so I either did something wrong first hour or did something wrong right now, but it looks right to me. Yeah. Y equals 6. Now, that's only part of the solution. That's the y of my solution. Remember, your solution to a system is the coordinate where the lines intersect. And if it intersects where the y is 6, I can find the x by now plugging this into one of the originals and solving for the x. Which one do you think would be easier to plug into? Okay, so if I plug it into this one for the y, that's what we just said. Y equals, it goes like this. Simplifying, what's 2 times 6? Good. And then isolating x. So would I get rid of the 3 or the 12 first? No, you always get rid of what is farther. So do that on both sides. 21 minus 12 is 9. Opposite of multiplying by 3 is do that on both sides, and I get x equals 3. Pair that together, that is where the solution is algebraically. Although when I did it earlier, I didn't get, and when I checked my answer earlier, my answer was right. Nope, I'm right now. I guess earlier I was wrong. All right, so there's that. Questions on this one? Again, side note, I would totally accept if you got this as your answer when graphing in the previous one. Just plugging it in for x and y in both of your original ones to verify that it's a solution would work. All right, questions on any other ones? Remember, you have to do at least one from each unit. Doesn't have to necessarily be completely right, but if you don't do one from each unit tomorrow, it's a -1. And it's out of 40. Other questions? Going once. Mandalay. The graphing. So for the graphing, I have my original system. One of them is already in the form that I like to graph from, slope-intercept form. The other one is not. So when it says show any algebra needed to graph each line, that would be you putting it into slope-intercept form. What is alone in slope-intercept form? The y. So if I get the y alone, it'll be in slope-intercept form, and then I can graph it. So what would I get rid of first to isolate the y? What is farther from the y? The 3x. So this is like as a unit. How would I cancel out the 3x? Whatever you do on one side of the equal sign. So then I get 2y equals, you could leave it in this order if you want. I prefer to put the x term first, but doesn't matter as long as you know which is which. Negative 3x plus 21 is the same as 21 minus 3x. Opposite of multiplying by 2 is, and remember you have to do it from each term. Because really it'd be like this whole thing over 2, which is the same as doing each by 2. Your slope is allowed to be a fraction as long as it's simplified, which it is. I can't simplify that more. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So this I can graph now that it's in slope-intercept form, and this I can graph. I'm going to do the one on top first. So I'm going to find where 10.5 is. I don't even know if I have enough on here, but let me try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it would be just like a little bit off the graph for the y-intercept. It shouldn't be like that on your final tomorrow. But I'm at 10.5. You plot your y-intercept first, and then you use your slope to find your next points. So from 10.5, I'm going down 3. So 1, 2, 3 would be at 7.5, to the right 2. So it's kind of weird because it's in like the middle, but we're going down 3. 1, 2, 3, to the right 2, until you have enough to make a straight line. So on your final tomorrow, maybe use like one of the papers and line it up so you make a nice straight line. The other one you get from doing -3 for the y-intercept, which is here. And we're going up 3 to the right 1 for the slope. So if it's not a fraction, put it over 1. It still has a run. It's going up 3 to the right 1. Up 3 to the right 1. 1, 2, 3. And look, there's where they intersect at 3, 6. Make sure that if it says to label each graph that you do, I mean, if you get it completely right, I might not mark you off if you forget to label it. But if it says like to clearly mark the solution, make sure that you clearly mark it. It intersects at 3, 6. Go ahead. All right, questions. Okay, questions on any other parts? Do we understand the other units and choices? Unit 1, choice 2.
So the fourth grade students in Miss Hampton's class made a line plot that showed the total amount of time they spent on homework for one night. There it is. There's a line plot. Identify each of the following. And would any of these be outliers? And then other questions. So you have a few options here. How do you find the mean? What's another word for mean? No, average. So that's the one where, let's see, I can't see my mouse. Okay. That's the one where you have to add up all the numbers and divide by however many numbers you added. Um, I would recommend a calculator. Since you're having to use a calculator for that anyway, what I'd probably use is a calculator for almost all of that stuff. And I would do it by putting it in Desmos, like how I taught you in Unit 1 way back when. I'd put like D equals, I just pick D for data usually, but almost any other letter works. D equals bracket, and then list all your data points. So I have 0, I have 2 10s. So yes, if they're there multiple times, you have to list them twice. 30s, 330s, 140, 450s, 160, 270s. There is 780s, 490s. And remember, I can't help you with calculators on the test. Someone tried to ask me during the last unit test. Sorry. I try to be very clear with you when I'm not going to help you with a calculator. I can't help you on your state testing with your calculator, so you have to know how to use it if you want to use it. And let me just make sure it says I have 26 in this list. I better have 26 X's or I messed up. Okay, and I do have 26. Um, so then in this little functions menu, you could find a lot of these already. So like mean, and then if I put D in the parentheses like that, it'll tell me what the mean was. It could also tell me a lot of these other things too. Not all of them, but a lot of them. It doesn't say what to round to, so I'm just going to round to 2 spots. If it does say what to round to, make sure you follow those directions. And it says quartile 1, median, and quartile 3. Do you guys remember the easy way of finding those? Stats, which is a function in here. Right here. Or you could just remember to type in stats and then parentheses D or whatever you called your data so that it attaches to your list from earlier. And this is kind of easier than me reteaching it to you how to find your middle. Although it's not impossible, you could find your middle for your median. That's 70. And then Q1 is the middle of your lower half of data. And Q3 is the middle of your upper half of data, which you can also find with your calculator. The only thing it can't tell you or it won't tell you is the interquartile range right off the bat. So you would have to remember that formula. How do you find interquartile range? Or do you guys know how to find regular range?
So we did do that. All right. Sorry, what was that? Q3 minus Q1. To put it in comparison, normal range, which you should know from middle school, is your maximum minus your minimum. So when you hear range, you should be thinking a subtraction problem. For interquartile range, it's you subtracting your quartiles. And it should never be negative. It should always be the bigger one minus the smaller one. So for me, it is 80 minus 40. Q3 minus Q1. So what is my IQR? 40. Would any of these be outliers? What do you guys think? Do any of them visually look far away from the rest of the data? So I would think that that's a safe assumption. It does say to prove it with mathematical calculations. So, I mean, if you don't do that part, still kind of guess, right? That would get you at least some of the points visually. And then usually you'll be right if you guess visually. But so far we're saying no. With the mathematical calculations, there is a rule that if it is 1.5 times the IQR, either less or greater than, depending on what number you think is an outlier, if it's small, smaller than the rest or bigger than the rest. If it's 1.5 times the IQR greater or less than, then it is an outlier. So my IQR was 40. 1.5 times 40 is that is gonna have to be something else later. 1.5 times 40 is 60. So it can't be 60 less than Q1, which would then be negative 20. So anything smaller than negative 20 would be an outlier. And it can't be 60 greater than 80, which is my 3. 80 plus 60 is 140. Neither of those numbers are part of my data. So no. You could say anything less than negative 20 or greater than 140 is an outlier. And that's the 1.5 to the IQR. All right. But we guessed it right just by looking at it. So, I mean, give it a guess if you don't remember that formula later. Then it says, after being told the amount of time spent on homework should also include the 20 minutes in class, would these changes affect the median, mean, or IQR? If so, would each measure increase, decrease, or increase from their original values? So we're adding a 20 to the data set. That's why I did erase it earlier, because I have a feeling we're going to add a 20. And it does change my mean. So you would say, yes, it affects the mean by decreasing it. Please be more descriptive than how I'm doing. Like a decrease. You can even include the value that you want, but that a decrease. It also asks about the median. The median is 70, which the median did not change. And then the IQR, which is 80 minus 30, which is 50, the IQR increase. And that's adding additional data point, so I just put it in my calculator. Looked at all my data I already had. And compare. All right, I think that's all we have time for. So again, if you want points, I mean, something is better than nothing, then take your pictures of it and upload it to Schoology by this afternoon. Once I'm done grading it, I'm not going back and like regrading it. I've already put in my scenes, or get it uploaded.